What if the enchanted objects of fairy tales weren't just props for fantasy, but keys to your inner world? Marie-Louise von France, in her deep studies of fairy tales, taught us to look beyond the surface. According to her, every magical object carries a hidden message from the unconscious. They are not arbitrary decorations in a story, but psychological symbols, tools of transformation that emerge when the soul is ready to move. Think about it. In real life, we don't stumble upon glass slippers or talking mirrors, but we do encounter inner moments of clarity, sudden inspiration, or forces that seem to guide us beyond reason. In the symbolic language of the unconscious, these experiences take the form of magical objects. In Jungian psychology, objects in fairy tales often represent archetypal energies, timeless patterns of the human psyche. A sword, for instance, can embody the capacity to cut through illusion. A ring may represent wholeness or eternal connection. These symbols don't belong to the outer world alone. They're mirrors of inner potential. Von France emphasized that when a magical object appears in a tale, it signals a turning point. The protagonist has either reached a certain level of readiness or is being challenged to awaken a latent capacity. It's never random. The object is a response to an inner need. Take the example of a cloak of invisibility. Psychologically, this could reflect a person's desire to withdraw from the collective, to become unseen in order to reconnect with something private and sacred. Or a key might appear, unlocking a door to a forbidden or forgotten part of the psyche. These symbols don't come with instructions. They demand interpretation, and more than that, they require participation. In the tale, the hero must use the object. Likewise, in life, we must integrate the inner resources we discover. The magic only works when it's in service of a larger transformation. So when we hear of a magic mirror or a golden apple, the story is really speaking to us, not just as listeners, but as fellow travelers on the psychological journey. The question isn't whether these objects exist in the real world. The question is, what part of you is waiting to be awakened by them? In the quiet stillness of a fairy tale, when a mirror appears, something profound is about to be revealed. It's never just about reflection. In the symbolic world studied by Marie-Louise von France, the mirror represents one of the most psychologically charged objects we can encounter. It invites a confrontation, not with the outer world, but with the image we hold of ourselves. To look into a mirror is to ask a question: who am I, really? In many tales, the mirror shows not only beauty or appearance, but also hidden truth. It sees through disguise. It reveals the unspoken, the denied, the forgotten. Psychologically, this act of reflection corresponds to the function of consciousness facing the unconscious. It is the moment when the ego, our everyday self, is forced to reckon with something deeper. In Jungian terms, the mirror can be the portal through which we perceive the shadow, that part of us we reject or ignore. And it's not always gentle. Just like the evil queen in Snow White, who asks the mirror, "Who is the fairest of them all?" We too risk being shattered when the answer does not match our fantasy. This is the danger of the mirror. It can feed either self-knowledge or narcissism. It can awaken clarity or vanity. The mirror doesn't lie, but we often do, especially to ourselves. If we're not ready, the image reflected back can destabilize the ego. What we see might not be what we want to see, but there's another layer. In certain tales, the mirror doesn't just reflect. It reveals what's invisible. It shows faraway places, secret plots, or hidden feelings. This magical quality symbolizes intuition, inner sight, and the capacity to access knowledge beyond the rational mind. It suggests that part of us already knows the truth. We just need the courage to face it. Von France believed that the mirror, as an archetypal symbol, demands sincerity. It asks us to become transparent to ourselves. And this is no small task. The path to self-awareness is often painful, but it is also the beginning of true transformation. One cannot evolve while clinging to illusions. So, the mirror is both invitation and warning. It can show us who we are becoming, but it can also imprison us in who we think we are. If we cling to appearances, to masks and roles, the mirror becomes a trap. But if we dare to look deeper, to question and confront, the mirror becomes a tool of awakening. In the end, it is not the mirror that decides what we see. It is our own willingness to witness the truth within, to see yourself clearly. Can you bear it? And if you can't, are you truly free? There is perhaps no symbol more delicate, more hauntingly precise than the glass slipper in the story of Cinderella. It appears only briefly, but it carries the entire weight of destiny, identity, and recognition. And in the psychological reading offered by Marie-Louise von France, the slipper is far more than a charming plot device. It is a symbol of something uniquely personal, something the soul cannot fake. Glass, by nature, is fragile, transparent, and exact. A glass shoe cannot be forced to fit. It will either slide on effortlessly or it will shatter. That's the first clue to its deeper meaning. The slipper is not simply about beauty or royalty. It's about authenticity. It fits only one person, not because of size, but because it reflects the shape of her being, her inner nature. In Jungian terms, the glass slipper represents the soul's singular path. It speaks to the idea that every individual has a unique psychic pattern, a destiny that cannot be copied or borrowed. Just as the slipper cannot fit the stepsisters, no matter how hard they try, your true path in life cannot be taken by force or imitation. When Cinderella places her foot into the slipper, the fit is effortless. And it is this effortless alignment that reveals the deeper magic. She doesn't have to explain herself, justify her worth, or fight for validation. The slipper does the speaking. Psychologically, this suggests a moment of inner alignment, when who we are inside finally matches how we appear to the world. But the slipper is also a threshold. Until this moment, Cinderella has been hidden, unrecognized, covered in ashes and silence. The glass slipper emerges after her transformation, but it is the key that unlocks her full integration into a new life. It's not the dress, or the carriage, or even the prince. It's the shoe that proves her truth. Von France reminds us that such symbols often appear at pivotal moments in a tale, not just to advance the story, but to announce an inner readiness. The person has undergone suffering, humility, and growth. The slipper appears as a response to that inner maturation. And it's important to note, glass breaks. It demands care. This uniqueness is not arrogant, but sacred. The message is clear. What is truly yours cannot be stolen, and what is not yours will never truly fit. In a world that often pressures us to conform, to fit into someone else's idea of success or identity, the image of the glass slipper offers a quiet but powerful resistance. It reminds us that the soul is not interchangeable. There is a design, a shape, that is yours alone. So the question becomes, are you walking in a path that fits your soul? Or are you still trying on shoes that were never made for you? In countless fairy tales, the appearance of a magic wand signals the arrival of transformation. With a single gesture, a pumpkin becomes a carriage, a frog becomes a prince, or a locked door swings open. But while the wand seems to work miracles, its deeper meaning lies far from the world of external spells. In the symbolic language explored by Marie-Louise von France, the wand represents something far more personal, the awakening of inner power. Unlike a sword, which often signifies confrontation, or a mirror, which invites reflection, the wand channels a quiet, focused force. It doesn't impose, it directs. It concentrates energy into intention. Psychologically, this makes it a symbol of conscious will in service of the self. When the wand appears, it signals that a character is either ready to act with clarity or is being offered an opportunity to align with a deeper truth. But not everyone in fairy tales wields a wand. Often, it is the fairy godmother, the wise old woman, or the magician who uses it. This is no accident. These figures are not just helpers. They represent aspects of the psyche that connect us to something greater than the ego. In Jungian terms, they are emissaries of the self, the inner wholeness that seeks expression through us. The wand is their tool because it represents transformative potential that comes from alignment with that deeper center. In this way, the wand is not simply a magical object. It is a psychological function. It reflects our capacity to bring unseen possibilities into form. It's the symbol of imagination made real, of potential activated. And importantly, the wand never works alone. There is always a moment of intention, of choice. The character must be willing, must desire change, must step into a new state. The wand responds to readiness. Von Franz often emphasized that symbols like the wand are not about escape. They are about integration. The wand does not erase hardship, it transforms it. It does not bypass suffering, it reveals a path through it. To truly wield such power is to accept responsibility for one's inner life. And this is the challenge the wand presents to us. Are we in touch with our own capacity to change? Do we believe that transformation is possible, not through control or domination, but through awareness, focus, and surrender to something meaningful? The magic wand is not an external tool. It lives within the psyche as the ability to respond creatively to the unknown. It asks us to believe in possibility, not as fantasy, but as inner truth. Because sometimes, the most powerful kind of magic is simply choosing to see what wants to emerge from within, and having the courage to bring it to life. Among the many magical objects in fairy tales, few carry the weight and clarity of the enchanted sword. It is a symbol, both feared and revered, often hidden in stone, guarded by dragons, or bestowed by mysterious hands. In the symbolic psychology of Marie-Louise von Franz, the sword is far more than a weapon. It is the embodiment of discernment, the sharp inner force that cuts through confusion, deception, and illusion. The enchanted sword does not serve violence, it serves truth. When a hero receives or discovers a sword in a story, it marks a moment of awakening. The sword is never given casually. It comes to those who are ready to confront something, usually not just an outer enemy, but an inner one. In Jungian terms, the sword represents the function of clear consciousness, of seeing through projection and fantasy. It is the psychological power to distinguish what is real from what is false. This clarity is not without cost. To use the sword is to take a stand. It is to step out of the fog of denial, wishful thinking, or inherited beliefs. In this sense, the enchanted sword often appears during the hero's transition from adolescence to maturity. It signifies the end of innocence, the beginning of responsibility. And with responsibility comes solitude, for clarity can isolate. Von Franz noted that many fairy tale heroes are tempted to abandon the sword, to forget their mission, or to fall asleep. That is because the sword demands vigilance. It is not just a gift, it is a burden. To hold the sword is to see too clearly, and once you see, you can no longer pretend. But there is also grace in it. The sword cuts not only through lies, but through fear. It frees the hero from the inner monsters. In stories, the sword often unlocks the next phase of the journey. It opens doors, defeats enchantments, or breaks spells. Psychologically, it allows the person to act with integrity. It is important to note that the sword is often enchanted, not ordinary. This reminds us that the kind of discernment it symbolizes is not born of ego or intellect alone. It is guided by something deeper, the self, the inner source of wisdom that cuts away what no longer serves. And so the sword is both a challenge and a blessing. It asks, What illusions are you still clinging to? What truth are you afraid to name? The enchanted sword waits not for the perfect moment, but for the courageous heart. To hold it is to embrace the risk of clarity, the possibility that once you see clearly, everything might change. But perhaps that is the point, that real transformation begins the moment we dare to cut away what was never truly ours. As we move through the world of fairy tales, each magical object appears distinct. The mirror reflects, the slipper fits, the wand transforms, the sword cuts. But beneath their individual symbolism lies a deeper unity, a thread that runs quietly through them all. Marie-Louise von France called attention to this invisible thread, not just as a literary motif, but as a reflection of something essential in the human psyche. So what unites all these enchanted objects? They each appear at critical thresholds in the story. They do not decorate the plot, they define it. Each object signals a turning point in the journey of the soul. The mirror brings self-awareness. The slipper announces recognition. The wand awakens transformation. The sword offers clarity. And yet, they are all variations of the same principle. Inner readiness meeting outer expression. This is the invisible thread, the call to integration. In Jungian psychology, such symbols are expressions of archetypes, but they are not passive images. They are dynamic forces. When a symbol arises in a story or in a dream, it carries energy. It points toward a shift, a movement in the unconscious that is asking to be lived consciously. The magical object does not create change. It reveals that change is already underway, and this change is always toward wholeness. Each of these symbols represents a different function of the psyche coming into balance. The mirror reflects the function of thinking and awareness. The slipper speaks to feeling and value, what fits the soul. The wand channels intuition, the power to bring invisible insight into form. The sword brings in the discriminating clarity of action, often associated with will. The invisible thread is not linear, but circular. These objects do not belong to one phase of life. They appear again and again, in different forms, at different times. They show up when we are lost, when we are becoming, when we are ready to step through the next door. They are not static. They are alive inside us. Von France emphasized that fairy tales are timeless precisely because these symbols are timeless. They speak across cultures and generations, not because we all believe in magic, but because we all long for meaning. And these objects give form to the invisible movements of the soul. So the question is not just what these objects mean individually, but how they work together. They are not tools of escape. They are invitations to participate more fully in life. They appear when we are ready to wake up, to choose, to act, to know. And when they do, something in us stirs. The feeling that, despite everything, we are being guided by something deeper than chance. Perhaps the real magic is not in the objects themselves, but in the silent thread that leads us back to who we are. Fairy tales often end with transformation, rags to riches, exile to return, sorrow to joy. But if we listen closely, the deeper story is not about escaping reality. It is about discovering something that was hidden all along. And perhaps the most powerful realization of all is this: the magic we chase in stories has always lived within us. Marie-Louise von France taught that fairy tales are not childish fantasies. They are maps of the human soul, carefully preserved across cultures and centuries. The enchanted objects within them, mirrors, slippers, wands, swords, are not only symbolic, they are living forces, not outside us, but inside. Each one is a reminder of the inner tools we carry, often forgotten or buried beneath the noise of the everyday world. The mirror waits for the moment we are ready to see. The slipper appears when we have grown into who we truly are. The wand answers the call when we dare to imagine new possibilities. The sword is drawn when truth can no longer be avoided. But none of these things move unless we are willing to respond. The fairy tale does not hand out rewards for nothing. It demands participation. And that participation is psychological. It is emotional. It is spiritual. The story does not transform the hero. The hero transforms by choosing, by suffering, by growing. And that is where the real magic lies. In modern life, we often look for meaning in achievements, in roles, in the approval of others. But fairy tales remind us of a different order, a deeper kind of knowing. They point us inward. They whisper that the path is not about becoming someone else, but about remembering who we already are. The magical object is never far away. It is as close as our own breath, our own courage, our own longing. But it only becomes visible when we are willing to see with different eyes. Von Franz believed that when we read fairy tales with psychological awareness, we awaken something ancient in the soul. Not nostalgia, but recognition. A feeling that we have always known this language, that it speaks to us because it is us. So as the story closes and the objects return to the mist of myth, one question remains. Will you leave the magic behind? Or will you carry it with you? Because the glass slipper cannot find your foot unless you are walking your true path. The wand will not respond unless your intention is clear. The sword will not serve unless your heart is ready. The story may end, but the journey is yours. And somewhere deep within, the magic still waits for you to remember. If this journey through mirrors, swords, and glass slippers spoke to something deep within you, don't let it stop here. Subscribe to the channel and join a community that explores the hidden wisdom behind fairy tales and the symbolic life of the soul. Leave a comment below. What magical object do you feel is active in your life right now? And if this video stirred something in you, share it, because the magic multiplies when it's remembered together.